Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Mr. Hussein Mosapi. In this video, we'll be looking at what is known as relations and functions. So before we get to it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. All right. Now, let us understand one thing. Every time we're talking about relations and functions, we need to know that these entities are two different things, but they complement one another. Let's start by first understanding what a relation is. So a relation is simply just a set of ordered pair between inputs and outputs. So a set of ordered pairs that is between inputs and outputs. Now, I also want you to understand this, that every time we're looking at what are known as input values are always the x values. So we're looking at all the possible x values that defines what we have. And all the possible x values are also referred to as the domain. And when we look at the output values, we're looking at all the possible y values that define something. And these are referred to as the range. Now, with this in mind, say we have a set of functions. Let me give you an example of a random function. Say h. Say h is a function that has the following: 4, 2, 3, 1, 7, 6. Now, if at all we were asked to identify the domain or the range, that is, if we are asked, that is, we can say that the domain should be all the possible x values. So this is xy, xy, xy. We should always start with the smallest number, then just like that, in ascending order. So the smallest number of x value is 3, then we have 4, and lastly 7. So these are all the possible x values, the domain values, the input values. Then if at all we're told to find the range, then the range will be all the possible y values, starting with the smallest, and that is 1, going to 2, and then 6. So these are the values that we have. Now, I also want you to understand something, that in some cases, we might be asked to map a given function. And if we are asked to map a given function, they can also ask us to, let's say, state the type of function that we have, or state if that particular thing is a function or not. Now, say we have a random example. Let's say we have a function f, it's having 2, 3, 4, 7, 3, 10, then 5, 3, like that. So we know that the domain will be 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. Then our range will be 3, 7, and 10. Remember xy, 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 xy. Now, if at all we wanted to map this, we can draw that. I guess my drawing is not that good, but bear with me. Okay, so let's say we have this. So we have the domain 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we have 3, 7, and then we have 10, as you can see. Yeah, we have more values in the domain than the range, because if you look at the range, we are having there's a number that, if you look, we have 3, 7, 10, and 3. We have 3 coming in twice, so we don't really have to write 3, 3. We just have to represent 1, 3 to say that it's 3 that is present. Now, one thing you should know is that the elements that we have in the domain are called the objects. And the elements we have in our range are regarded as the image. So objects are mapped on the image. So these are the images we have. So as you can see, the first pair of relation is 2, 3. So 2 is being mapped onto 3. And the next one is saying 4 should be mapped on 7. So this is 4 being mapped on 7 like that. Then again, we're having 3 being mapped on 10. So our 3 being mapped on 10. Then lastly, we're having 5 being mapped on 3. So we're having 5 being mapped on 3. Now, this is said to be a function because all the input values are being mapped onto the output value. Each input must only have one output. Remember, each input must only have one output. It's a very important point. So for something to be called a function, you need to have like each object should have its own mapped image. I hope that's clear. All right, so in some cases, we might also have maybe an image where we have a random function. Let me call this one P, just for simplicity's sake. Say you have 1, 2, then you have 1, 3, and then 2, 3, like that. So you know your domain. This is xy, xy, xy. Your domain are all the possible x values. That's just 1 and 2, like that. And then your range are all the possible y values, and all the possible y values that you have are basically 2 and 3. Okay, so like that. So if you try to map this as your domain range, so the objects in the domain, we have 1 and 2. In the range, we have 2 and 3. You'll find that 1 is being mapped onto 2, like that. Then again, 1 is being mapped onto 3, like that. Then 2 is being mapped onto 3, as you can see. So there should be only one output for each input, I would say. But since for a function to exist, we're saying that each input should have its own output, then we should take in consideration that we can have different values of x being mapped onto different values of y, or same value of y, and not the same values of x being mapped on different values of y, because each input, like I said, should have its own output. We'll get to understand this clearly as we look at examples. Now, if at all we are asked to say what type of relation do we have if we're given a particular mapping, we can try to understand how we can identify that by looking at the types of relations that we have. Now, the types of relations are mostly referred to as functions. You mostly hear terms like one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one, and the like. But those things are mostly just relations that helps you to know if what you have is a function or not. Now, let's look at the first type of relation, which is called a one-to-one function. This one qualifies to be called a function. Now, a one-to-one is whereby you have something like this. Let me give you a random scenario. Say you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm having 1 being mapped on that, 2 being mapped on that, 3 on that, and then 4 on that. Now, in this case, you would find that one value of x is being mapped to one value of y. So that's 1 to 1. One value of x being mapped to one value of what? Y. Okay? Be mindful about that. So each object of the domain only has one image in the range, and each image in the range only has one object in the domain. So let's be mindful about that. So this is called a one-to-one function because only one value of x is on one value of what? Y. All right. Now the next one that we have is called many to one relation. Now in a many to one, as you can see, many to one, say you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So like you have many being mapped to one. Like that, many to one. So in a many to one case, you have two values of x. So you have two values of x going to one value of y. Take note of that. Two values of x going to one value of y. That is why it's called a many to one. So whenever we have many x values that are being mapped on one image, we call that a many to one. Okay? Because where at least two elements of the domain have one image, then it qualifies to be what? A many to one. And this basically is not really a function, because for something to be a function, each object should have its own image. Remember that. Then we have what is known as a one to what? Many. Now, from the statement one to many, so you have one from the object and go into many. So let's say I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So one to many. So one is going to this guy and that guy. Maybe even this one is going there and that. So I have one going to many. So whenever you have one value of x going to many values of y, then that is what is known as a one to what? Many. So where at least one element in the domain has more than one image in the range, then that is literally called a one to many. And this does not qualify to be called a function. It's not really a function. For something to be a function, like I said, each object should have its own image. And then that should be what? Later, C. So it should be D. All right, D. Okay, so now we have a many to many. Okay, so many to many is, you expect many to go to many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you expect another one, but you expect many to go to many. So many should go to many. Yeah, so you expect something that is like that. So I'll do that first, then I'll do that again, then I'll do that, then I'll do that, I'll do that as well, I'll do that and that. So this is a many to many because we have many x values going to many y values, as you can see. So when such happens, then you have a many to many. So at least one, so not say one. So in the domain, you should have more than one element that is going in the range. Yeah, for it to be qualified as a many to many. So you expect something like two values of the x to two values of the y, something of such nature. Now, this is not really a function because some elements, you'd find that in some cases, some relations, you won't even find that some elements are not even being mapped onto anything. So each element should be mapped onto something for something to qualify to be what? A function. If at all that is not there, then it's already a function. So basically, I hope you guys have understood what a relation is and the type of relations we have. Yeah, and always remember that whenever you have the domain, you're trying to discuss or talk about all the possible x values, and the range talks about all the possible y values you have in your function. All right, thanks for watching, and remember, small progress is better than no progress. This is Mr. Hussein WhatsApp. If you have any questions, you can reach me on WhatsApp on the number 077 149 5252. And remember to strategize before you become a statistic, and let's try and push for that A+.